Hey everyone. Tonight we don't start with marching bands or flags waving for returning heroes. We start in a restroom at New York Harbor, 1945. The crowd outside is cheering, calling them the greatest generation. But inside, Jack Miller, just back from Normandy, rolls up his sleeve and drives a morphine needle into his vein. In Europe and the Pacific, morphine dulled the screams, and benzodrine kept men awake through fire and steel. But when the war ended, the pills and needles didn't. This isn't a story about medals or monuments. It's about a veteran who won the war overseas but lost the one raging inside his own blood. If you want unflinching stories of survival, shame, and the wars that never ended for the men who fought them, hit like and subscribe. And in the comments, tell me, where are you watching from, and what hidden cost of history still echoes in your world today now. Follow me into the secret war of Jack Miller, where morphine became his final battlefield. Jack stands in that quiet restroom, the echo of the harbor's cheers barely reaching him now. A muted hum against the sudden, exquisite silence that fills his veins. This isn't the first time the needle has brought this kind of peace. His memory drifts back, a slow, unbidden tide, to a different time, a different place, entirely Normandy. 1944. He remembers the damp earth, the biting cold, the deafening roar that was a constant companion, a heavy blanket of sound that pressed down on his very soul. He recalls the sudden, shocking impact, a blow that felt like the world itself had fractured. Tearing through muscle and bone, shrapnel, they called it. He felt it pierce him, a searing, white-hot agony that consumed everything. The world became a kaleidoscope of pain, an endless, twisting vortex that stole his breath, stole his thoughts, leaving only the raw, primal scream that tore from his throat, lost in the din of war. He was on the ground then, the mud cold against his face, the smell of gunpowder and fear thick in the air. He couldn't move, couldn't think, only feel the relentless, insistent throbbing that pulsed through his body. Each beat of his heart a fresh wave of torture. And then, a shadow fell over him, a gentle voice, a medic. He saw the glint of the needle, a tiny beacon in the swirling darkness, the cool pressure on his arm, a brief, sharp sting. And then, a miracle. The pain, that all-consuming, monstrous agony, began to recede, not quickly, not abruptly, but like a slow, deliberate tide pulling away from the shore. It softened. It dulled, the sharp edges blurring into a hazy, comforting warmth. A quiet sigh escaped his lips, a sigh he didn't even realize he was holding. He remembers the gentle drift, the feeling of letting go, a sweet surrender to the liquid solace. That was when he truly understood. With a clarity that resonated deep within his bones, salvation, in its most immediate, undeniable form, came in a syringe. But the battlefield offered other forms of fleeting peace, other ways to push back against the relentless assault. Jack remembers the Ardennes, the bitter cold that seeped into his uniform, into his very marrow, chilling him to the bone. The endless marches, 40 hours straight, felt like his legs would simply give out, that his mind would unravel from the sheer exhaustion. His eyelids grew heavy, his vision blurred, and the frozen landscape began to twist into dreamlike distortions. That's when the benzodrine pills appeared. Small, unassuming tablets that promised to conquer fatigue, to grant him unnatural stamina. He swallowed them, one after another, feeling the jolt, the sudden rush of energy that pulled him back from the brink. His eyes snapped open, his muscles tightened, and the heavy fog of sleep lifted, replaced by a jittery, almost manic alertness. He could march, he could fight, he could endure, powered by this tiny chemical fire. It wasn't about pleasure, not then. It was about survival. On the front lines, amidst the deafening chaos and the constant threat of death. These drugs were not weaknesses or vices. They were essential tools, lifelines, a means to survive another day, another night. They were salvation, cloaked in liquid and pill form, and the lesson they taught him, etched deeply into his psyche, was that this salvation was always there, waiting. The cheers outside the New York harbor, once a distant lullaby, now feel like a mocking chorus as Jack finally makes his way home, to a small house in Queens. He tries to settle back into the rhythm of civilian life. But the quiet of his bedroom is a profound, unsettling contrast to the constant thrum of war he's known for so long. The days are a performance, a brave face for the family. But the nights, the nights are a different battlefield entirely. He lies in bed, restless, the sheets tangled around his legs like oppressive chains. The darkness, once a blanket, becomes a canvas for the specters of his past. He thrashes, his body jerking in response to unseen horrors. A silent scream caught in his throat, then erupting into a hoarse shout that rips through the still air. Beside him, his wife stirs, a soft gasp escaping her lips. She clutches the sheets, her knuckles white, her fear a tangible presence in the room. She whispers his name, a plea, a question, but Jack is not there. He is back in the frozen forests of the Ardennes, the scent of pine needles and death filling his nostrils. He sees them again. The corpses, frozen solid, their eyes wide and staring, locked in a perpetual silent scream. Their hands, stiff as marble, still clutching their rifles, their faces a pale blue under the snow. He remembers the eerie quiet of the battlefield after a skirmish, a silence so profound it was almost heavier than the shelling, broken only by the crunch of his boots on the icy ground as he walked amongst the fallen. These images, these sounds, these phantom smells, they cling to him, vivid and unrelenting. He wakes with a start, his heart hammering against his ribs, a cold sweat dampening his skin. His entire body trembles, a residual tremor from the terror he just lived through. He blinks, trying to orient himself, to separate the nightmare from the reality of his quiet bedroom in Queens. His wife is awake now, her eyes wide with worry, watching him. He can almost feel her unspoken questions, her silent heartbreak. The fear in her eyes is a reflection of his own, a fear that the man she knew, the man she married, is slowly being consumed by an invisible enemy. The urge, the craving, begins to stir within him, a quiet whisper that quickly grows into an insistent demand. His hand reaches out, almost unconsciously, searching for the familiar, hidden comfort. Under the pillow, perhaps, or tucked away in the bedside drawer. The cool, slender cylinder of a leftover morphine syringe feels like a lifeline in his trembling fingers. It's a relic of a war that promised to end, yet stubbornly refused to release its grip. With a practiced ease born of countless battlefield injections, he prepares the dose, the slight pressure, the brief sting, and then the familiar wave of warmth. A gentle current flowing through his veins, slowly, steadily washing away the terror, dulling the sharp edges of the nightmares. The images of the frozen dead begin to fade, retreating into the hazy, distant corners of his mind. The shaking subsides, his breathing evens out, and a blessed, albeit temporary, peace settles over him. This, he realizes with a quiet, hollow ache, is his only ceasefire. The war might be over for the world, but for Jack Miller, the only truce he knows, the only true relief from the haunting echoes, is found within the silent embrace of a syringe. And so, the night continues, a fragile peace bought with a liquid promise. As the sun rises over Queens, Jack pushes away the lingering tendrils of the previous night's torment, tucking them deep within the shadows of his mind. By day, he is the returning hero, the man who fought for freedom, the one who survived. He puts on a smile, a practiced, reassuring mask, and emerges from the bedroom, ready to greet the day, ready to perform the role America expects of him. He tells stories of the war, tales of bravery and camaraderie, carefully edited versions that omit the terror, the desperation, the moments of utter desolation. His voice, though a little too bright, carries a lilt of triumph, recounting explosions and narrow escapes, making his family laugh, making them proud. He sees the admiration in their eyes, the relief that he is home, seemingly intact. This carefully constructed facade is exhausting, a constant drain on his already depleted spirit. But it is necessary. He is a hero. Heroes do not fall apart. Yet, as the day winds down, as the shadows lengthen and the house grows quiet, the facade begins to crack. The laughter fades, the brave stories recede, and the internal struggle intensifies. He feels the creeping tendrils of anxiety, the subtle whispers of craving beginning to stir within him, a familiar hunger that grows stronger with each passing hour. The world outside the bedroom door, with its innocent questions and its loving gazes, feels increasingly dangerous. It's a world that doesn't understand the demons that reside within him, the relentless war still raging in his blood. So, as dusk settles, he retreats, locking the bedroom door behind him, a symbolic barrier between his carefully constructed daytime persona and the raw, vulnerable truth of his nights. The click of the lock is a small, quiet sound, but it resonates with a profound finality, sealing him off, protecting his secret, or perhaps trapping him within it. His wife, bless her heart, is observant, too observant. She loves him, sees him, and tries to understand the changes that have taken root within him. She notices the small things, the subtle shifts, the hollow look that sometimes flashes in his eyes when he thinks no one is watching. And then, she notices the physical marks, bruises, purplish constellations blooming on his arms, small pinpricks that seem to appear without explanation. Her brow furrows with worry. Her gaze lingers on his skin, a silent question in her eyes. Jack has become adept at deflection, at crafting quick, dismissive lies. Just scratches, he'd say, waving a hand, a casual shrug, tripped in the dark, or perhaps work accident at the factory. Each lie feels like a small betrayal, a chip off the foundation of trust they once shared. But he tells them anyway, compelled by the desperate need to protect his secret, to maintain the illusion of control. He still fits into his uniform, the crisp wool and polished buttons a testament to the soldier he once was, the soldier he is supposed to remain. He might even put it on sometimes, catching his reflection in the mirror, searching for the man who wore it with pride and purpose. The uniform still drapes over his shoulders, familiar and comforting, a shell of who he was. But when he looks closer, truly looks into his own eyes in that reflection, he sees it. The hollowness, a vast, empty space where something vital used to be. The sparkle, the vibrancy, the easy light that once danced there, is gone, replaced by a weary, almost haunted emptiness. The war, he realizes with a quiet dread, hadn't just followed him into the bedroom. It had settled deep within his very gaze, a silent testament to the battles that continue to rage unseen. Battles that threaten to consume the man who once wore that uniform with honor. The year turns 1946. The initial fervor of homecoming has faded, replaced by the grim realities of daily life and the relentless, gnawing hunger within Jack. The legitimate channels, the carefully hoarded leftover syrettes, are dwindling, and the nightmares, the tremors, the crushing weight of memory are returning with a vengeance. The need becomes an unbearable physical ache, a demanding presence that overshadows everything else. One cold, damp evening, desperation drives Jack out of the quiet streets of Queens and into the grimy, flickering neon of a Brooklyn bar. The air is thick with the smell of stale beer, cheap cigarettes, and unspoken sorrows. Here, in the shadows, amidst the clinking glasses and muffled conversations, he finds himself seeking out a different kind of camaraderie, a different kind of connection, one based not on shared sacrifice, but on shared desperation. He finds him in a secluded booth, a man with cold, calculating eyes and a smirk that never quite reaches them. The dealer. His presence feels predatory, yet Jack is drawn to him, a moth to a dangerous flame. His heart thrums a nervous rhythm against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anxiety and anticipation. He knows, deep down, that this is a precipice, a moment of no return. Yet, the craving is a stronger master than his conscience. Jack reaches into his pocket, his fingers trembling slightly as they close around the cool, metallic shape of his purple heart. It's heavy, substantial, a tangible symbol of his sacrifice, a gleaming testament to the blood he shed on foreign soil, a medal meant for honor, for remembrance, for a legacy of bravery. He slides it across the worn, sticky tabletop, the clinking sound surprisingly loud in the hushed conversation of the booth. The dealer's eyes narrow, assessing, a flicker of avarice in their depths. He picks up the medal, turning it over in his fingers, a dismissive gesture that feels like a punch to Jack's gut. His smirk widens, a cruel, knowing smile that seems to mock Jack's very soul. "Glory for a fix," he murmurs, his voice low and gravelly, the words like sandpaper on Jack's ears. Fair trade, wouldn't you say? Soldier. The words sting, a bitter truth that tastes like ashes in his mouth. He is right, in a twisted, cynical way. Jack is trading one form of salvation, the recognition of his past courage, for another, the temporary oblivion of the present. The dealer places a small, dark vial on the table, its contents a murky promise. Jack snatches it up, his fingers closing around it almost convulsively. It feels impossibly light. Yet its weight in his hand is immense, burdened with the cost of his honor, the shame of his desperation. His heart races now, a frantic drum against his ribs, a wild bird trapped in a cage. He has traded a symbol of his deepest courage for a fleeting moment of peace, a desperate bargain in the quiet desperation of a Brooklyn bar. As he clutches the vial, the warmth of the morphine seeping through the glass into his skin, he realizes, with a chilling certainty, that he has exchanged one form of hunger for another. The hunger for relief, for escape, has devoured the very honor he once held so dear. The shadows of the bar seem to deepen, embracing him in their silent judgment as he walks away. The metal gone, the vial a heavy, illicit burden in his trembling hand. The mornings after acquiring a new stash are different for Jack, infused with a strange, almost feverish energy. He tries to reclaim a semblance of his old life, finding work, striving for normalcy, pushing through the haze. He lands a night shift at a factory, the rhythmic clanging of machinery a constant companion, a dull drone that almost, but not quite, drowns out the incessant whispers of his craving. The work is physically demanding, his hands calloused, his back aching. But it's a distraction, a way to earn an honest wage, to pretend that he is just like any other man, building a future. The irony, though, is a bitter pill in itself. This tireless effort, this relentless pursuit of a normal life, is fueled not by a natural drive, but by the very substance that is slowly, steadily dismantling him from the inside out. Benzedrine. He pops the pills, small white ovals, with a grim determination. They are his silent partners in this double life, his invisible fuel. The world speeds up. Colors seem sharper, sounds more distinct, and his body feels a surge of artificial energy. Sleep, that elusive, often terrifying state, becomes unnecessary. He can work through the night, through the early morning, through the slow crawl of dawn, his eyes wide open, unblinking. But this energy comes at a cost, a subtle tremor that runs through his hands, a persistent vibration that he tries to hide, to control. It's an almost imperceptible shake, a constant hum beneath his skin, a physical manifestation of the chemical fire raging within. His boss, a stern but fair man, sees only the results. He praises Jack, his voice gruff but appreciative, calling him a hard worker, a diligent, reliable hand who never seems to tire. He sees Jack's unwavering stamina, his unwavering presence, and interprets it as dedication, as strength. He doesn't see the frantic, desperate race against the clock, the fear of what happens when the pill wears off, the profound exhaustion that lies just beneath the surface of his artificial energy. His words of praise, meant to encourage, feel like a heavy weight, a testament to the success of his elaborate charade. Meanwhile, his co-workers, the men who stand beside him on the assembly line, their faces smudged with grease and weariness, notice other things. They exchange glances, quiet murmurs passing between them when Jack's not looking. Why does he always shake, they whisper, their voices low, curious, sometimes tinged with a hint of suspicion. They see the tremor in his hands as he lifts heavy parts, the slight jitteriness in his movements, the way his eyes dart around the room, always a little too wide, a little too alert. They don't understand the invisible battle Jack's fighting, the constant effort it takes to maintain this precarious balance. They see only the outward manifestation, a puzzling oddity in an otherwise unremarkable man. To them, he is just a colleague, a bit strange, perhaps, but ultimately productive. They see the output, the finished products, the efficiency of his labor, but they never see the pill, the hidden engine, the silent, relentless force that drives him, slowly but surely, towards an inevitable, unspoken reckoning. And so, Jack continues his double life, a phantom in the factory, fueled by a secret that weighs more heavily than any shift he works. Time passes, a blur of factory shifts and hidden doses. The war, which once consumed Jack's every waking moment, now feels like a distant echo, a ghost he tries to outrun. But some connections, forged in the crucible of battle, are meant to last, or so he tells himself. One evening, an invitation comes, a chance to reunite with his old comrades, the men who stood beside him in the mud and the fire. He feels a flicker of the old warmth, a yearning for the easy camaraderie, the shared understanding that only those who have faced death together can truly know. He arrives at a dimly lit bar, the air thick with the scent of stale beer and nostalgia. Familiar faces emerge from the shadows, older now, some with scars that tell their own silent stories, but still undeniably them. The initial greetings are boisterous, filled with backslaps and hearty laughs, a brief, fleeting return to the days before the world changed. They raise glasses, toast to memories of Normandy, the shared terror now softened by time into something almost heroic, almost romantic. Jack recounts anecdotes, embellishing stories for the sake of a good laugh, and for a few precious moments, he feels a sense of belonging, a fragile peace settling over him. He is among his own, men who understand, men who fought the same fight. But then, the conversation shifts, almost imperceptibly, a subtle current pulling them beneath the surface of the easy banter. A knowing glance, a quiet nod, and one by one, the men begin to slip away from the table, drawn by an unspoken need. Jack follows, a familiar ache in his gut, into the cramped, stale-smelling restroom. The mood here is different, hushed, almost conspiratorial. The bravado of the bar melts away, replaced by a shared vulnerability, a silent understanding of the deeper, darker war they are all still fighting. Syrettes, vials, and makeshift implements begin to appear, passed around like forbidden candy, their contents a liquid promise of escape. Jack watches, his heart heavy, as the men, his brothers in arms, find their solace in the familiar ritual, the slow, methodical preparation, the slight flinching as the needle finds its mark, the sigh of relief that follows. It's a mirror of his own quiet struggle, a horrifying reflection that simultaneously comforts and disgusts him. Then, suddenly, a sharp, choked gasp pierces the hushed air. One of the men, a strapping young soldier who once joked about being invincible, collapses, his eyes rolling back in his head, a thin line of foam escaping his lips. His body goes limp, a dead weight against the grimy tiles. The suddenness of it, the brutal finality, rips through the fragile camaraderie of the room. The laughter, the shared stories, the easy comfort, all shatter. Jack stares at his lifeless form, his stomach churning, a cold dread seeping into his bones. This man, who survived the relentless shelling of Normandy, who faced down the enemy with courage and resolve, has fallen here in a grimy restroom, not to a German bullet, but to the very thing that once offered him, and Jack, salvation. A profound, chilling realization washes over Jack. The brotherhood, the unbreakable bond forged in the fires of war, the same bond that allowed them all to survive the unimaginable, was now silently, tragically, falling apart, one needle at a time. The war might have united them, but this hidden enemy, this silent addiction, was scattering them, claiming them, one by one, in the most desolate and ignominious ways. The stark image of his fallen comrade in the bar's restroom claws at Jack's mind, a haunting reminder of the precipice he stands on. He tries to push it away, to bury it under the weight of daily life. But it lingers, a silent accusation. The fragile peace he finds in his doses is increasingly short-lived, replaced by a growing agitation, a simmering rage that simmers just beneath the surface. His wife, who once understood his silences, now sees the tremors in his hands, the sudden, unprovoked outbursts that flash in his eyes. She catches the scent of alcohol on his breath, the faint, sweet chemical tang that sometimes clings to his clothes. Her face, once filled with hope, now carries a permanent shadow of worry. Her eyes often red-rimmed from quiet tears shed in the dark. She sees the man she married slipping away, replaced by a stranger, unpredictable and volatile. His daughter, his little girl who once greeted him with such unadulterated joy, now recoils from his unpredictable moods. Her laughter, once a bright melody in the house, has grown quieter, more hesitant. She observes his blank stares, the moments when his eyes seem to look right through her, seeing instead the ghosts that haunt his private world. She senses the shift, the growing distance, the unsettling transformation of the man who was once her hero. A child's intuition is a powerful, unblinking thing, and she sees the truth he desperately tries to hide. The warmth, the safety, the comforting presence of her father is eroding, replaced by an unsettling aura of fear. One night, the internal pressure reaches a breaking point. The craving is a living, breathing entity, a monstrous beast gnawing at his insides, demanding to be fed. He's run out, or perhaps he's simply miscalculated, the frantic search yielding nothing. The house feels suffocating, the air thick with unspoken tensions. He paces, his movements jerky, agitated, his mind a whirlwind of desperate thoughts. The smallest thing, a misplaced item, a child's innocent question, becomes a trigger. He slams his hand down on the dinner table, the sudden, jarring crash echoing through the quiet house, making the plates jump, making his family flinch. The sound is raw, violent, a desperate cry for relief, for escape from the relentless torture of withdrawal. His wife gasps, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes wide with fear and despair. His daughter, her small face pale, her eyes welling up with tears, retreats into herself, her small body trembling. She whispers, her voice barely audible, a fragile lament that pierces his drug-addled mind with surprising clarity. Dad never came back. The words hang in the air, heavy with a truth so profound it almost breaks him. It's a child's innocent observation, yet it encapsulates the devastating reality of his situation. The man who left for war, the man they yearned for, the man they celebrated, never truly returned. His body walked through the door, but his spirit, his essence, was left behind. Or perhaps stolen by the insidious grip of addiction, the war. He realizes with a cold, horrifying certainty. Was no longer just claiming him, it was slowly, systematically, killing his family. One shattered moment, one whispered fear, one silent tear at a time. The home he fought for, the family he cherished, was crumbling around him, a tragic casualty of a war that refused to end. The fractured pieces of his home life, the quiet fear in his daughter's eyes, the despair etched on his wife's face. These are ghosts that haunt his waking hours. But the craving remains a more immediate, more insistent master. With legitimate sources scarce and the black market a dangerous gamble, a desperate path opens before Jack the doctor's office. He convinces himself it's for genuine ailments, for the lingering pains of war, the sleepless nights, the anxiety that gnaws at his gut. He puts on his best performance, a carefully calibrated show of suffering, hoping to evoke sympathy, hoping to secure a legal, steady supply. He walks into the sterile environment of the doctor's office. The antiseptic smell a sharp contrast to the grimier scents of his usual haunts. He sits on the edge of the examination table, his heart thrumming with a mixture of hope and anxiety. When the doctor finally enters, he is a man of science, of healing, a figure of authority in a crisp white coat. Jack recounts his tales of sleeplessness, of persistent aches that radiate from old shrapnel wounds, of the restless nights filled with unspeakable horrors. He describes the gnawing pain, the kind that only truly quiets with a specific kind of relief, carefully avoiding the word morphine, but subtly implying its efficacy. To his relief and a strange sense of quiet despair, the doctor listens, his gaze kind but distant. He nods, scribbles notes on his pad, seemingly taking Jack's word at face value. Perhaps he is overwhelmed by the sheer number of veterans returning, each carrying their own invisible wounds. Perhaps he is simply too busy, too trusting, too eager to alleviate suffering in the most straightforward way. He asks few probing questions, doesn't delve into the specifics of Jack's emotional torment or the deeper origins of his pain. Instead, he reaches for his prescription pad, a simple, almost mechanical gesture. Without further inquiry, without the deeper understanding that might have saved Jack, he writes it down. Morphine, a legal refill, sanctioned by the very institution meant to heal. A quiet smile spreads across Jack's face, a mixture of triumph and self-loathing. He walks out of the pharmacy, the small paper bag in his hand feeling like a treasure chest, the vial inside a new promise of peace. The bitter irony is not lost on him, America itself. The nation he fought for, the society that called him a hero, seemed to be unwittingly, perhaps even innocently, feeding his addiction. The pharmacies, once places of healing, of remedies for the sick, had transformed into a new kind of battlefield for him. Here, he fought not against an external enemy, but against the insidious grip of his own hunger, using the very tools of medicine as his weapons of self-destruction. Each prescription filled, each dose taken, was a small, quiet victory in his war, pushing him further down a path that offered only temporary solace and a deepening despair. The walls of his self-imprisonment were growing stronger, brick by brick, prescription by prescription. the cycle continues, a relentless rhythm of seeking, taking, and briefly finding oblivion. But the world, even in its oblivious state, offers moments of stark clarity, brutal reminders of the path Jack is on. One crisp autumn morning, a black-edged notice arrives, a stark bulletin of loss. It's for another one of his comrades, a man he shared foxholes with, a man whose face he remembers clearly, even if his name now escapes him in the drug-induced haze. His funeral is scheduled, a quiet affair, and a somber, heavy dread settles over Jack. He knows, instinctively, that this isn't just another veteran's passing. This is a mirror. Jack attends the funeral, a small, somber gathering under a gray, weeping sky. The air is cold, carrying the scent of damp earth and wilting flowers. He stands among a handful of mourners, dressed in his darkest suit, feeling like a ghost among the living. The family is there, huddled together, their faces etched with grief. He sees their carefully composed expressions, the way they avert their eyes, the whispers that are abruptly silenced when he draws near. He already knows the truth, before a single word is spoken. His comrade was found dead, they say, in his small, unassuming apartment. The needle still in his arm, the local paper, in a small, almost apologetic corner article, reported his passing with a carefully chosen euphemism, "War hero dies quietly." There's no mention of the syringe, no hint of the struggle, no acknowledgement of the war that ultimately claimed him long after the official one ended. The family, dressed in solemn black, plays their part, maintaining the illusion, protecting the deceased's reputation, burying the truth alongside his body. Their pain is raw, but beneath it, Jack senses the shame, the quiet, desperate need to preserve a heroic narrative, even in the face of such a devastating reality. They are trying to save Face, to save his memory from the stain of addiction. Jack stands by the coffin, its polished wood gleaming dully in the dim light of the funeral parlor. His gaze fixed on the closed lid, he imagines his face beneath, pale and still, finally at peace, or perhaps forever tormented. A profound, bone-chilling terror seizes him. He sees not just his comrade, but himself. This is his future, laid out before him in stark, undeniable relief. He is burying a comrade. Yes, but he is also burying a piece of himself, a premonition of his own inevitable end. The cold, hard truth of it settles over him, heavy and suffocating. This is the path he is walking. This is where it leads. The silent funeral of his friend is not just a goodbye. It is a terrifying prophecy, a chilling glimpse into the desolate landscape of his own future. And as the casket is lowered into the earth, he feels a profound chill, as if he is already being buried alive, alongside him. As the calendar pages turn and the shadows of the late 1940s deepen, the nation's mood shifts. The jubilant homecoming, the parades, the easy narrative of a greatest generation that saved the world, these begin to harden, to calcify into something less forgiving. By 1947, the Cold War is casting its long, chilling shadow across America. The country needs heroes, not broken men. It demands symbols of strength, resilience, and unwavering patriotism in the face of a new global threat. There is no room, no patience, for the messy, inconvenient truth of veterans struggling with addiction, with mental scars that refuse to heal. The government, with its vast machinery of propaganda and public image, begins a quiet campaign of erasure. The stories of addicted veterans, the whispers of hidden struggles, the inconvenient truths about the psychological aftermath of war, these are carefully, systematically silenced. They are seen as blemishes on the national pride, stains on the gleaming narrative of victory. America needs a united front, a powerful image of unwavering resolve. And men like Jack, men consumed by internal battles, do not fit the mold. His struggles, once an uncomfortable secret, become a national embarrassment, something to be swept under the rug, to be forgotten. Jack feels it, this subtle shift in the air, this quiet turning away. He reads the newspapers, listens to the radio, and the message is clear. Albeit unstated, his kind is no longer welcome in the triumphant narrative. He is, in essence, being erased, written out of the story he helped to create. Jack Miller, the man who fought for freedom, the soldier who faced down unspeakable horrors, is now seen as a liability, a flaw in the perfect tapestry of American heroism. The weight of this rejection is heavy, a profound sense of isolation that settles deep within his bones. He is a blemish, a mark of imperfection on the pristine facade of national pride. And the country he served so bravely now seeks to pretend he does not exist. The irony is a bitter one. He risked his life, lost pieces of himself, endured unimaginable pain, all for this nation. And now, in its moment of triumph, it turns its back on his suffering, choosing instead to focus on the ideal, the unblemished hero. He is left adrift, an inconvenient truth in a world that craves comforting lies. The Cold War is fought on distant battlefields, but a new kind of coldness descends upon Jack. A chilling realization that the very nation that celebrated his return now wishes he would simply disappear, leaving only the myth of the unscarred warrior. The silence surrounding his struggle, and the struggles of thousands like him, becomes deafening, a profound testament to the unspoken price of national image. America, in its renewed quest for invincibility, has declared that it needs only its heroes, not the broken, struggling men like Jack, who carry the true, unvarnished cost of war in their very blood. The pervasive sense of erasure, the government's subtle distancing from the uncomfortable truth of addicted veterans, only amplifies Jack's own internal struggle. The black market is too risky. His body demands more, and the legal prescriptions, though a temporary reprieve, are never quite enough. So, desperation leads him to another avenue, a place of last resort for many like him, the Veterans Hospital. It's a place meant for healing, for support. But what he finds there is a reflection of the silent epidemic sweeping through the ranks of returning servicemen. He joins the queue, a long, shuffling line that seems to stretch on endlessly, a silent river of weary souls. The air in the waiting room is heavy with unspoken stories, with the faint metallic tang of disinfectant and the lingering scent of stale cigarettes. Jack looks around, truly looks, at the faces of the men beside him, ahead of him, behind him. Dozens of them. Their eyes, bloodshot and hollow, tell a story he knows all too well. Their hands, many of them, tremble with the same subtle, uncontrollable tremor that has become his constant companion. Their bodies, though outwardly whole, betray an internal disquiet, a restless energy that can't be contained. They fidget, they sigh, they cough, their gazes unfocused, lost in their own private battles. Jack listens to the murmured conversations, the hushed complaints, the careful phrasing of symptoms. He overhears the strategies, the thinly veiled desperation in their voices. Many, he quickly realizes, are like him. They are not faking their pain entirely. The pain is real, profoundly so. But they are faking its nature, its origin, twisting the truth to fit the narrative of a physical ailment. They describe phantom limbs that ache with unbearable intensity, old wounds that throb with a renewed vengeance, persistent insomnia that renders them desperate for oblivion. They craft their stories with an almost artistic precision, knowing exactly what to say, what to emphasize, to secure that coveted prescription, that temporary reprieve from the relentless grip of addiction. And the doctors, the weary, overworked physicians behind their desks, they sign the papers anyway. Perhaps they are truly unaware, too focused on the immediate task of treating symptoms, too overwhelmed by the sheer volume of suffering before them. Perhaps they, too, are caught in the national narrative, reluctant to question too deeply, to unearth the uncomfortable truth of widespread addiction among their heroes. Or perhaps, in their hearts, they simply want to alleviate the suffering, even if it means perpetuating a cycle they don't fully understand. Whatever the reason, the outcome is the same. The state, through its veterans' hospitals, through its seemingly benevolent medical system, becomes an unwitting accomplice, feeding the hunger, not truly facilitating the healing. The queue lengthens, the prescriptions flow, and the quiet tragedy continues, sanctioned and sustained by the very institutions meant to protect and care for those who sacrificed so much. And Jack Miller is just one more face in that silent, desperate line. Another soul seeking solace in a system that offers only a temporary chemical ceasefire instead of true peace. The fear of detection, the subtle judgment in his wife's eyes, the knowing glances of his co-workers, these pressures pushed Jack toward a new kind of drug, one that is easier to conceal, more socially acceptable, yet no less insidious. Benzedrine, the very same pep pill that kept him awake through the freezing nights of the Ardennes, becomes his new chosen companion. It's easier to hide from his wife, a small tablet that can be swallowed discreetly, leaving no telltale needle marks, no immediate tell-all collapse. The initial high is less intense than morphine, but the sustained energy, the ability to push through exhaustion, to function in a world that demands his constant artificial alertness, makes it appealing. The pills are legal, surprisingly so, readily available, and cheap. They are everywhere. It seems a ubiquitous part of the post-war landscape. Jack finds them in pharmacies, sometimes even in general stores, marketed as remedies for fatigue, for lack of focus, for the general malaise of modern life. He begins to swallow them by the handful, a desperate, frantic effort to keep pace, to outrun the exhaustion, the sadness, the emptiness that threatens to swallow him whole. The initial jitters evolve into a constant hum, a perpetual motion machine fueled by chemicals. He is always moving, always doing. But beneath the frantic activity, a deep, pervasive weariness lingers, untouched by the artificial stimulation. What begins as Jack's secret struggle, his personal battle against the lingering ghosts of war, soon blossoms into a much larger, societal phenomenon. The need for constant energy, for an edge in the competitive post-war economy, for a way to manage the stresses of suburban life, this creates a fertile ground for the spread of amphetamines. Soon, it's not just veterans like Jack seeking to dull the echoes of battle. It's suburban America, housewives and businessmen, teachers and students, all reaching for the same small, white pills. They crave the energy, the focus, the ability to do more, to be more, in a society that increasingly values productivity above all else. The pep pill becomes a cultural staple, a seemingly innocuous aid to modern living. The quiet desperation that started in the trenches, fueled by a soldier's need to survive, slowly, insidiously, invades the suburbs. What was once a battlefield necessity morphs into a domestic convenience, a widespread, unacknowledged addiction that takes root in the very heart of American life. Jack Miller is an unwitting pioneer in this new era, a testament to how the hidden costs of war can ripple outwards, transforming not just individual lives, but the very fabric of society. The battle against exhaustion, against the overwhelming demands of life, has shifted from the bloody fields of Europe to the manicured lawns of countless American homes, powered by the very same chemical he once used to survive. And as he swallows another handful of pills, the world around him seems to hum with the same artificial energy, unaware of the silent, growing addiction that binds them all. The relentless artificial energy, the constant tremor, the short temper fueled by the amphetamines, these were a poor substitute for the man his wife had married. The gentle, loving husband was replaced by an unpredictable stranger, prone to sudden rages, his eyes often wide and unfocused. The careful facade Jack maintained for so long begins to crumble entirely, brick by agonizing brick. One evening, the tension in the house, a palpable, heavy thing that has settled over every corner, finally snaps. Another violent outburst, a scream that rips through the quiet domesticity, a fist slammed against a wall, a plate shattered on the floor. It is the final, agonizing straw. His wife, her face etched with exhaustion and despair, can no longer bear it. The man she loves is gone, lost to a war that refuses to relinquish its hold, consumed by a hunger she cannot understand or satisfy. The fear for herself, and more importantly, for their daughter, outweighs any lingering hope or loyalty. She files for divorce. The legal papers, crisp and cold, arrive like a death sentence, severing the last fragile ties to the life Jack once cherished, to the family he fought so desperately to protect, the home he bled for, the sanctuary he longed to return to, is now irrevocably broken. His daughter, his little girl who once adored him, becomes a silent casualty in this escalating war within their home. When his voice rises, when the anger flashes in his eyes, she no longer meets his gaze. Instead, she hides, crawling under her small bed, burying herself in the darkness, her tiny body trembling with fear. Her soft cries, muffled by the mattress, are a symphony of heartbreak, a poignant testament to the profound damage inflicted by the war that never ended. She seeks refuge in the shadows, away from the unpredictable storm that is her father, a man she no longer recognizes. The neighbors, who once greeted Jack with smiles and words of congratulations, now whisper behind cupped hands. Their glances are averted, their sympathy laced with judgment. The war broke him, he overhears one say, the words a blunt, crushing assessment of his downfall. Their pity feels like a brand, a mark of shame burned onto his very being. He is no longer the hero. He is the cautionary tale, the tragic consequence. A man irrevocably damaged by forces beyond his control, yet entirely consumed by them. And so, Jack finds himself alone, in the wreckage of a life he once held dear. The house, once filled with the warmth of family, is now a cavernous, echoing space, amplifying his solitude. He sits, a bottle of cheap whiskey clutched in one hand, its bitter burn a familiar comfort, a temporary numbing agent. In the other hand, the syringe, its sharp needle glinting dully in the dim light, poised and ready. The home he fought for, the dreams he held on to through the horrors of battle, are gone, shattered into irreparable pieces, leaving only the quiet despair of a man adrift, with only the bottle and the needle for company. The war has won this battle, too. The bottom falls out, with his family gone, his job tenuous, and the relentless demands of his addiction growing ever stronger. The money vanishes like smoke. The legal prescriptions, the doctors who once looked away, are no longer enough. Or perhaps they've finally grown suspicious. The easy access has dried up, leaving Jack stranded, desperate, consumed by a hunger that allows for no other thought, no other path. The once proud uniform is long gone, replaced by rags, by clothes stained with neglect, smelling of stale sweat and regret. His pride, too, is a distant memory, sacrificed piece by agonizing piece. One frigid night, the gnawing emptiness in his gut, the frantic tremor in his hands, drives Jack to an act he once would have considered unthinkable. He stumbles through the darkened streets, his mind a whirlwind of craving, his feet dragging, a pharmacy, brightly lit, a beacon of tantalizing relief, appears before him. The glass door, the neatly arranged shelves, the silent promise of oblivion. It's too much to resist. He breaks in, the sound of splintering glass a jarring symphony in the quiet night. His hands, usually so steady with a rifle, now fumble clumsily as he grabs at bottles, at vials, at anything that promises escape. It's a blur, the flashing lights, the shrill wail of sirens, the rough hands on his arms. He is apprehended, not as a soldier, but as a common criminal. The handcuffs bite into his wrists, cold metal against bruised skin. He is taken to the station, pushed into a small, cold room. The stark flash of a camera captures his image, emblazoning his degradation for posterity. His hair is disheveled, his eyes hollow, his face gaunt and unshaven. A stark reflection of the man he's become. The once proud soldier, the celebrated hero, is now a mugshot, a grainy image of shame and despair. The next day, the headlines scream, "Decorated veteran arrested in pharmacy robbery." His name, Jack Miller, once whispered with admiration, now blares from the front page, irrevocably linked to crime and desperation. The newspaper photo, a stark, unflattering image, becomes a public testament to his fall, his Purple Heart, that gleaming symbol of courage and sacrifice. Once a shield against all misfortune, cannot save him now. It cannot buy him a moment of peace, cannot bring back his family, cannot erase the shame that washes over him, cold and crushing. The honor he earned on the battlefield, the medals that once adorned his chest, now feel like a cruel mockery, a stark contrast to the mugshot that replaces them. The hero is now a criminal, his glory a faded memory, lost to the relentless hunger that consumes him. The news travels fast, a swift, cruel current through the quiet channels of Jack's old life. The newspaper, with his mugshot staring out from its pages, becomes a devastating instrument of exposure. A major paper, one read by thousands, had not only reported his arrest, but, in a chilling act of public shaming, printed the names of other addicted veterans, a list of broken men, their struggles laid bare for all to see. And there, amongst the columns of names, stark and undeniable, was Jack Miller's. The paper is like a loaded gun, its words firing into the remnants of his past. Old neighbors, those who once waved and smiled, now gasp in recognition, their faces a mixture of pity and horror. Their whispers, once discreet, now carry the weight of public knowledge. Their memories of the war hero replaced by the image of the junkie, the thief, his ex-wife, who had tried so desperately to shield herself and their daughter from the full extent of his decline, sees it, too. He can almost feel her silent tears, the fresh wave of sorrow and shame that washes over her, reinforcing the painful truth of her decision to leave. The carefully constructed walls of denial, the quiet suffering, all crumble under the unforgiving gaze of the public eye. Jack holds the newspaper in his trembling hands, the crisp paper feeling heavy, weighted with the raw truth of his public degradation. His own name, in black and white, stares back at him, a chilling confirmation of his fall from grace. Shame, hot and suffocating, floods through him, a sensation so potent it almost eclipses the familiar hunger of his addiction. Every lie, every deception, every hidden injection, every desperate act, it all converges in this moment. Laid bare, exposed to the world, the secret he fought so desperately to protect, the private war he waged within himself, is no longer his own. It belongs to the headlines, to the gossip, to the collective judgment of a society that once celebrated him. In the throes of this overwhelming despair, a wave of profound hopelessness washes over him. The world feels too heavy, too unforgiving, too bright with its cruel truths. He reaches for more, always more, seeking oblivion, seeking a final, permanent escape from the unbearable weight of his shattered life. He overdoses, a desperate attempt to silence the shame, to extinguish the pain, to simply disappear. The world blurs, fades to black, a welcome release. But even in this final, desperate act, he is denied peace. He is found, barely clinging to life, pulled back from the brink of oblivion by the cold, impersonal hands of strangers. He survives, a bitter victory, forced to face the blinding light of a new day, carrying the fresh scars of his public humiliation, his secret no longer his own, but a shared burden of the nation. The stark terror of the overdose, the humiliation of public exposure, leaves Jack adrift, rudderless. The familiar path of seeking solace in the needle, though still compelling, now feels tainted, stained by the shame. In this profound loneliness, a flicker of an old hope stirs within him the brotherhood. The men he shared the trenches with, the ones who understood the unspoken language of war. Surely they would understand this, too. He yearns for that shared space, that silent camaraderie that once offered a semblance of belonging. He sets out, a ghost among the bustling crowds, seeking out the old haunts, the familiar faces. He visits the bars where he once clinked glasses, the veterans' clubs where stories were traded and solace found. But the faces are gone. The space is empty. The men he fought beside. The ones who knew the terror. The sacrifice. The quiet desperation, they are no longer there. Some, like his fallen comrade, have succumbed to the same relentless enemy, their stories ending quietly in forgotten rooms. Others, perhaps, have vanished into the vast, indifferent tapestry of post-war America, seeking their own desperate forms of escape, or perhaps, miraculously, finding a way out of the darkness Jack now inhabits. The Veterans Club, once a lively hub of shared memories and easy laughter, is now a desolate, dust-filled space. The chairs are overturned, gathering a thick layer of neglect. The air is stale, heavy with the ghosts of conversations long past. The silence is profound, almost deafening, a stark testament to the scattering of a generation. The sense of belonging, the comforting warmth of shared experience, is gone, replaced by a chilling emptiness. Jack sits alone in the quiet, nursing a glass of cheap whiskey, its bitter warmth a poor substitute for the camaraderie he craves. The clinking of ice in his glass is the only sound, a lonely rhythm in the vast, echoing silence. The army, he realizes with a fresh wave of despair, had united them. It had forged an unbreakable bond, a brotherhood hardened by fire and steel. But the needle, that insidious, silent weapon, had scattered them. It had taken his friends, one by one, leaving him adrift in a sea of loneliness, his connection to the past severed, his hope for the future dim, the silence of the empty club, the absence of familiar faces, is a powerful, crushing testament to the devastating toll of the hidden war. A war that broke not just individuals, but the very fabric of the bonds that once held them together. And as the whiskey burns its way down his throat, Jack is left with only the bitter taste of solitude, a profound realization that the war, in its cruelest irony, had taken away even the comfort of shared suffering. The empty club, the vanished faces, these pushed Jack further into the margins, into the forgotten corners of the city. The craving, though briefly dulled by the whiskey, returns with a relentless, insistent urgency. There are no more doctors to deceive, no more pharmacies to raid without immediate consequence. He is a ghost now, wandering the streets, his clothes tattered, his body gaunt, his eyes hollowed out by sleepless nights and constant hunger. The city, once a vibrant tapestry of possibility, becomes a cold, unforgiving labyrinth, each turn leading him further into despair. He finds himself in a park, a sliver of green amidst the gray concrete, a place where families laugh and children play. But he is not part of their world. He sits on a cold bench, his body aching, his mind a desperate whirlwind. The need for pills, for anything that will quiet the incessant gnawing within him, becomes an overwhelming force. He whispers, then openly begs, his voice hoarse and raw, to passers-by who, "Help me," he pleads. "Just a little something, for a soldier." He sees their reactions, their quick glances, their averted eyes, the subtle tightening of their lips. They quicken their pace, pulling their children closer, their faces a mixture of fear, disgust, and profound indifference. He is invisible, a blight on their perfect, post-war world. They turn away, unwilling to acknowledge the uncomfortable truth he represents, the inconvenient shadow of a war they'd rather forget. He is filthy, his once proud uniform long gone, replaced by layers of grime and neglect. His face, once strong and determined, is now gaunt, his eyes wide and vacant, staring out from deep-set sockets, seeing nothing but the relentless gnawing of his hunger. He is a specter of his former self, a walking testament to the war's insidious aftermath. As he sits there, defeated, a small child, clutching his mother's hand, points a tiny, innocent finger at him. His voice, clear and bright, cuts through the dull hum of his despair. "Mom," he whispers, his young voice filled with curiosity and a hint of innocent confusion. Was he really a hero? The question hangs in the air, a devastating echo that slices through Jack's hardened defenses. It's a child's simple query, yet it embodies the profound tragedy of his existence. The image of the hero, the man he once was, is now so utterly divorced from the broken man he has become that it sparks genuine doubt even in the mind of a child. The country he fought for, the people he protected, have turned their backs, choosing to forget the inconvenient truths of his suffering. America, in its desire for a clean narrative of victory, has buried him alive in shame, a living monument to the forgotten cost of its triumph. And as the child's question lingers, unanswered, Jack realizes, with a heavy heart, that the true battle was not fought on foreign soil, but in the quiet, desperate corners of his own soul. A battle he is slowly, inexorably losing. The child's innocent question, a phantom whisper in his memory, reverberates through the cold, empty room where Jack now resides. It's a space devoid of warmth, of comfort, of the lingering presence of a life once lived. This is his final sanctuary, a dark, desolate room, smelling of damp earth and stale air, a fitting stage for his final act. The incessant hunger, the gnawing ache, has returned, stronger than ever, a relentless beast demanding its ultimate price. There is no more fight left in him, no more pretense, no more hope, only a profound, all-encompassing weariness. He lays out his meager possessions on a makeshift table, 3 small artifacts representing the shattered pieces of his life. First, his purple heart, its tarnished metal catching what little light seeps into the room. It gleams faintly, a silent testament to a past glory that feels utterly detached from the man he is now. It's a relic of a hero, a man who no longer exists. Beside it, a worn, faded photograph of his family, his wife, smiling gently, his daughter, a tiny, joyful sprite. Their faces, once a beacon of love and purpose, now evoke a profound ache, a crushing reminder of what he lost, of the life he destroyed. And finally, the last vial of morphine, its liquid contents a murky, tantalizing promise of absolute stillness, of ultimate oblivion. Jack picks up the metal, its weight familiar in his trembling hand. He traces the etched lines, the familiar shape, and memories flicker. Fleeting images of Normandy, the Ardennes, the blinding pain, the rush of salvation. His voice is a hoarse whisper, barely audible in the profound silence of the room. "Normandy," he murmurs, the name a sigh. "Ardennes. It's all gone. The battles, the sacrifices, the brotherhood, the love, all of it reduced to a distant echo, a fading dream. It's all gone. consumed by the relentless march of addiction, by the hidden war that raged within his very veins. With a profound, heavy sigh, he prepares the final dose. The ritual is etched deep into his muscle memory, a practiced, almost sacred act. The pressure on his arm, the brief sting, and then the slow, creeping warmth. The blessed release. It washes over him, deeper, more profound than ever before, a wave of liquid peace that encompasses his entire being. The vial, now empty, slips from his loosening fingers, falling softly onto the tarnished purple heart, its metallic clink a tiny, solitary sound in the vast silence. His breath catches, a final, ragged gasp. His heart, worn out by years of battle, both external and internal, begins to slow, to stutter, and then, with a final, quiet beat, it stops. The family photo, jostled by the subtle movement, slides from the table, falling face down onto the grimy floor. Its innocent smiles now hidden from the profound solitude of his final moments. The last battle, the one that truly mattered, the one fought in the dark, silent chambers of his own blood, is finally, irrevocably, lost. The world outside moves on, oblivious to the quiet drama that played out in his desolate room. Jack's funeral, if one could even call it that, is a small, somber affair, sparsely attended, barely acknowledged, a handful of distant relatives, a few faces from a forgotten past, perhaps a representative from the Veterans Affairs, all maintaining a careful distance, their grief muted, their words guarded. There are no grand eulogies, no booming military honors, no flags folded with crisp precision, just a quiet burial, a final lowering into the earth, a final resting place for a man whose story was too inconvenient, too painful, too shameful for a nation in triumph. The local paper, in its brief, understated obituary, refers to him as a war hero, a solemn acknowledgement of his past service. But there is no mention of the needle, no whisper of the addiction that consumed him, no hint of the hidden war that ultimately claimed his life. His truth, the raw, agonizing reality of his struggle, is buried with him, a secret kept in the name of propriety, in the service of a more palatable narrative. The newspaper paints a picture of a valiant soldier, untainted by the demons that truly plagued him, perpetuating the myth, guarding the national image. Meanwhile, on the grand, hallowed grounds of the National Mall in Washington, D.C., the monuments gleam under the brilliant sun. They stand tall, magnificent testaments to the heroism and sacrifice of World War II, symbols of a unified, triumphant nation. Polished marble, majestic statues, and carefully carved names commemorate the battles, the victories, the lives lost, and the generations that fought. The World War II Memorial, a sprawling expanse of granite and bronze, celebrates the greatest generation, a powerful, unblemished narrative of courage, resilience, and unwavering patriotism. But amidst those gleaming stones, among the thousands of names etched into the cold, hard surface, there is no place for Jack Miller's. No stone bears his name. No inscription whispers of the quiet despair that followed him home from the battlefields. And more tragically, no monument acknowledges the thousands of others like him, the Morphine men, the Benzedrine boys, the soldiers whose internal wars raged long after the last bullet was fired. Their struggles, their suffering, their ultimate downfall, remain unacknowledged, hidden beneath the carefully constructed facade of national glory. They saved the world. Yes, with unimaginable courage and sacrifice. But in the end, in the quiet, desperate battles fought within the confines of their own blood, they could not save themselves. Their monument is not made of stone and glory, but of silence, shame, and the quiet, enduring sorrow of a secret kept.